First up on Sunbelt Media Days 2025, the defending conference championship coach and the 2025 preseason Sunbelt Player of the Year. It's Locked On Sunbelt.
You are Locked On Sunbelt, your daily podcast on the Sunbelt Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. Today's episode brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms and conditions apply. All right, so it turns out Southern Miss was up first, at least with us. We got the head coach, Charles Huff, obviously the defending championship coach with Marshall Thundering Herd. We talk about the move, setting the tone, and bringing all the players in. And, of course, we talk about the game against Mississippi State opening up the season in Hattiesburg. We talk about Braylon Braxton and his move and what he needs to do to improve, of course. And we talk about Chris Jones, who went to Mississippi, stayed in Mississippi, went to Southern Miss, is from Mississippi, and decided to stay in Mississippi under Charles Huff. He is Charles Huff, he is Braylon Braxton, and he is Chris Jones, and they are all Locked On Sunbelt. Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. We're, live-ish at Sunbelt Media Days 2025, and we're here with the head coach of Southern Miss, Charles Huff. Always good to catch up with you, Coach. Now I'm hearing rumblings, all right, and as we pointed out in a previous episode, we hear what we want to hear. I'm hearing you're talking about me in Locked On Sunbelt at your little road show. Don't tell Schultz we're as good as we think we're going to be. Now, a couple of things. A, I like that you're thinking about Locked On Sunbelt. That's awesome. Also, B, I'm the one saying you're better than everybody thinks you're going to be. What are you talking about? Don't tell Schultz we're good. We're better than everybody thinks we are. I'm the one saying you are going to be better.
Well, I want to make sure that two things. One, I'm driving fans to Locked On Sunbelt.
They're the best.
I want to keep the podcast at a very high rate. And then two, I want
is in the mail.
I want you to kind of like turn your tune, because I don't want people to think like, well, Schultz knows what he's talking about, and these guys are going to be really good, and then everybody thinks we're good. So I want you to be like, well, after media days, guys, I'm not too sure.
Right.
I feel confident, but I'm not too sure.
Right, we got to go back to
we got to go back. Yeah, we got to go back.
Maybe Mississippi State.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yes. I want you to and then you can play the episode when you were like, well, 4 months ago, I was saying that they had a chance.
That's right.
So you can't be wrong in this.
All right. I probably already asked you this when you came on a few months ago, but let's go back. Because it was like boom, 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 right? Win the division, win the championship. We're off to Hattiesburg. When did the head stop spinning? If it has stopped spinning, when did we able to take? All right, we got that going. Now we can implement the culture like we talked about. When did we take a breath? Like, all right, now we can stop planning and start. We found a home, family settled, team settled. Now we can start looking towards 2025 and 26, and we got what was behind us. Now we're looking forward, and the plan is in place.
Probably not until we got into the summer period, just because the roster was constantly changing all the way through the spring. We knew even after December, we brought in a good group of guys, 40 plus guys in December. But we knew we weren't finished, and we knew we had some positions that we really had some needs at. So even after spring ball into the summer, attacking those needs. So probably not until the end of June, once all of the guys that we felt like, okay, here are the guys that are going to be on the team got there, that you're kind of like, okay, now what do we need to do, obviously, to transition to get ready to play a game? With 75 new players, 80 if you include the walk-ons, it's a lot of starting over, but you've got a good group of guys in there that can validate, what you're saying works. And I think that helps. I think when we really look at it, we're different because we're really like a program that gets guys in year two, because we got 25 guys in year two. So if you told me any other team in the country that they were going to have, 25 key players coming back, you'd feel like, okay, they got a good core nucleus. So that's similar to us. So we were able to kind of take that breath in June, kind of let that core cultures kind of ride in. And now we got a lot of work to do here at the end of July, moving into August.
All right, so there's a plan, right? You have that plan going into spring ball. I always say life is about making the adjustments. How much of adjustments did you have to make? Did the holes that you need to fill, were there any holes that you didn't think you needed to fill, you had to fill? Because you really don't know what you think you know what you have, but you're not really sure until you get the guys on the field.
Yeah, we had to do some adjusting, which we would have had to do anyway, right? Because obviously you're not going to have your whole team there, because the old school way, 10 years ago, your high school kids didn't show up until, so you still had a good group of 20 or so kids that weren't there. We had to do some adjusting because some of the positions that we needed players that we just didn't have enough depth to practice the exact way we wanted to. So we focused on other things. We focused a lot on the mental disposition. The X's and O's take care of themselves. But getting the guys and learn how to think like a champion, how to respond like a champion, how to go to class like a champion. 25 guys knew, right? But the other ones didn't, so you can't just say, well, we're moving on. So we spent a lot of time in that. Our adjustment probably was less football, more culture, team building, bonding, mental disposition, getting the mindset right? The X's and O's are the X's and O's. And we talked about it. Everybody goes through spring and you got your 15 installs, or, hey, we got to get to install 8 by this date. We didn't have that approach. We said, let's teach our base systems, because a good percentage of these guys aren't even here yet. Let's teach our base system, and let's teach them how we play, how we practice, how we go to class. So now when these guys come in June, now you got 60 guys who are now kind of indoctrinated into how you do things. So that helped.
We're talking to Charles Huff, head coach of Southern Miss Lockdown Sunbelt, your teams every day. So then how much are you relying on those 25 guys that you brought down from Marshall to help with those installs? Because you're really doing offense 101 and defense 101. You're really not taking it to the next level. You're going to rely on those your old guys to help the new guys.
Yeah, and you rely on your coaches to be smart coaches, right? I mean, we can sit up here and draw up these great plays, but if the guy can't run it or doesn't know where to go, or once he fails, can't respond, doesn't matter. So you're relying on those 25 guys, one, to kind of teach, the intricacies of what you may not get taught. You're relying on good coaches to be able to adjust. And then we're relying on our summer program, because that was really our spring ball. Obviously, we don't have pads. But from a teaching implementation of X's and O's, that was our spring ball. So that really helped. These guys did a really good job this summer. Even when the coaches, get their break or vacation, or really, doing the 7-on-7s, meeting, watching the installs, all of those things. And I think that's really helped.
All right. So then what has this road show been like, traveling the state of Mississippi, other than me being the focus of it, or somewhat focused?
It's been good, man, because, the good part for you is you're a recognizable name. That's a good thing.
Let me tell you, Southern Miss fans, they engage one way or another. They engage. I'm sure you have found that out.
No, and it's been great because, it's one of those things where sometimes winning can spoil you. And sometimes when you win a lot, you become very arrogant to winning. And sometimes it takes a reset for you to appreciate winning. I think the Southern Miss fans, I'm not saying they were arrogant or not before. I'm just saying I think they have had the reset and they really appreciate winning. They appreciate, a program that's not just being built with, hey, this player, but it's being built from the ground up. They appreciate players, who wanted to come here even in the midst of the record of the recent history. And sometimes that's what you need to revitalize, a fan base or community or program. So it's been good getting around to see everyone, the outpouring. I've had more people at these events than I've ever had, at places I've been. And I think it just speaks to the volume of compassion, the volume of energy, excitement for Southern Miss football. Don't know how that's going to continue, August 30th at 11:02.
We toasty.
Yeah.
Think you need to start hydrating the week before.
Once we kick the ball off, they may stop coming because they're like, oh, you guys suck. But I think, again, that's what's going to propel us to where we want to go. You don't win a championship by just being a good team. You win a championship by being a good, community, good university, good administration, good facilities people, good, equipment managers, good sports and medicine doctors, good fans. You got to keep coming to the games. You can't say, oh, we're coming to Mississippi State and we're coming to Jack State because they're in-state rivals, and then the next week we don't have anybody there. It all matters. And I tell people all the time, I'm fully aware neither one of us like paying to see a bad concert.
Right.
So we have to put on a good performance. And when I've got to be prepared to get our guys ready to perform. We're not going to win every game. It's just the reality of it. But how we play, the fans, the people that spend their hard-earned money to come see it should be appreciated.
Let's take a time out. When we come back, we'll talk about Braylon Braxton and Chris Jones and how they've gotten better and what they need to do to improve in 2025 so Southern Miss can exceed what are not really very high expectations coming off that 1-11 season. We'll do that right after I tell you about Game Time. Have you ever decided at the last minute you want to head to a ball game with friends or family? Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. That's exactly where Game Time comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last-minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even invite a bigger group to come with you. Game Time makes it possible. Game Time makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to the first pitch, and they've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and the lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. Let's continue our conversation with the head coach of the Southern Miss Golden Eagles. He is Charles Huff, talking about the players he brought to the 2025 Sunbelt Media Days, quarterback Braylon Braxton and linebacker Chris Jones. A couple more minutes with Charles Huff, head coach of Southern Miss. All right, let's talk about the two gentlemen that you have. Second year in a row that the player of the year is returning, maybe the newcomer of the year is returning, and he is the preseason player of the year. Last year was Jordan McLeod. Didn't quite have the year in his returning year. Now you have Braylon Braxton. How can the kid who won the conference championship, what does he need to do to take his game to the next level? Where does he need to improve his football game?
Yeah, I think it's consistency in the details. You know, obviously the prognosticators and people that select polls and all that, that's great for the fans. At the end of the day, the work still got to be done.
Sure.
I think you got to look back and say, okay, where within the growth of, his development, where can I get better? I think sometimes what happens is the projection or expectation of a season or statistics outweigh the ability to grow. We have this perception that, because he was player of the year, he's supposed to have Heisman numbers, when really he just needs to improve. Sure. And that's the thing, and I get it. And, fans get excited, and I don't know the numbers from the other guys or whatever it is, but the expectation being so high, he just needs to improve every day.
By the way, his head was in his phone. Now all of a sudden he's listening.
Yeah. Well, and I think he understands that. And you're never going to, as a quarterback, you're never going to meet the expectation, right? I mean, whatever you do, Tom Brady's the greatest quarterback of all time.
He'd be the first to tell you that.
And they're going to talk about the 2 or 3, Super Bowls he didn't win,
right.
But that's the reality of it. But I think if you really look at it, it's just going out every day and trying to improve.
Right.
And that may be today, that may be from a conditioning standpoint. Tomorrow, that may be from a read standpoint. The next day, that may be from a good teammate standpoint. How was I able to pick the team up? A week from now, that may be on third down. As the season goes on, I think we evolved a little bit last year. We joked in our office. We became the air run instead of the air raid. But that's what you got to do as a quarterback. You got to evolve. What do I need to do this week, to help us win? And being able to evolve as the season goes is a big part of that.
And tell us about Chris Jones.
Yeah, phenomenal. I think whenever you look at a young man who has an opportunity to leave but stays, obviously it's easy for a group of guys to follow because we know what we're following, right? We're following. We just won. We're following the energy. But you're talking about a young man who stayed through the misery. And still chose to stay because he believed in what was coming. I think he represents his university well. He's from the state of Mississippi. This place means a lot to him. I think he is the reason why our other guys are able to connect so easily with the guys that were here because they watch his leadership. They watch his approach. He wasn't able to play the last 3 games, but, he was on track to have, a really good season. He's taken that missed opportunity and applied it to his everyday approach to gratitude. And it's been phenomenal. You talk about 2 leaders, which is a tough thing to find in today's, culture. Everyone wants to be their own individuals, which we understand. But you're talking about 2 leaders who not only care about their performance, but the people around them.
All right, let's wrap it up. We got to talk about that first ball game. I'm going to give Jeff Levy a bunch of credit. A lot of coaches in his position would say, you know what, we ain't playing Southern Miss at Hattiesburg. You guys are hosting Mississippi State. It's your first ball game. I'm going to be the only guy in the nation who is looking forward to a game that has 2 teams combined with 3 wins the year before. I know it's not the same Southern Miss team. I'm sure he thinks his team is improved. I mean, it's going to be an 11 a.m. game. Again, please hydrate before, the week. Don't start Friday. You got to start the week before. Obviously, guys, you don't have to work on getting guys motivated for that game, especially a guy like Chris Jones who grew up in Mississippi. It's going to be a lot of fun, and the Rock is, well, for lack of a better term, going to be rocking.
Yeah, a lot of respect for Coach Libby and what he's done. Going into year 2 in any program, you're going to improve. Again, whether that game is, heavy favored for one team or the other doesn't really matter. What matters is, in my opinion, is one, we get an opportunity to see who we are and how we're going to play. The second thing is, you brought it up, it's tremendously valuable to the state of Mississippi. For us to be able, from an economic, revenue perspective, to get them to come to our place is huge. And you talk about, rev share and where college football is going. We need more of this. Mississippi State's going to have their financial status solidified. We need more of this. So I appreciate them for, sticking with it and continue to do it. I think it speaks a lot to who Coach Levy is. The on-the-field performance, we're going to have to play extremely well. It's just the reality of it. I've been in these type games before, at Notre Dame, at Virginia Tech, NC State. We've been in these environments before. You have to play extremely well. You don't get a lot of opportunities, or you can't miss a lot of opportunities. Obviously, from where they are, where we are, they're a year ahead of us. So they've been through the growing pains of how the team reacts when things don't go well, how the team reacts when things go well. We've got to learn that really, really fast, and we have to play really well. I mean, I think their quarterback is phenomenal. He missed some time last year, but you talk about a second year in the system. Like we talked about with Braylon. You talk about their defense being improved. They've put a lot of, we can say it now, money into their roster. Sure. It is what it is.
Right.
And it's going to create a lot of challenges for us. Right. But what I'm looking
for, a pretty good running back who was at South Alabama last year.
And a pretty good running back who was in this conference. I think that speaks to the level of this conference as well. So, I think it's going to come down to how well we prepare all week. That's the end of the day. How hard we play, and then how well we execute. It's not a game that's out of reach, but it's definitely not a game that's in the bag. I'm appreciative of the opportunity to start with such a good opponent, because it allows our focus all summer to have a lot more focus intent. Coach Saban taught me that when we were with him. He wanted to play a game that was, lack of better words, meaningful early, because it helped you all summer kind of have a focused intent. And I think that's what it's going to do for us.
He's Charles Huff, head coach of the Southern Miss Golden Eagles. He is locked on Sunbelt. Best of luck, Coach. Hope to catch up sometime during the season. Let us talk to Braylon Braxton and Chris Jones. Thanks very much.
Thanks, guys. To the top.
Let's take one more time out. We'll get a chance to talk to the players right after we take a break and say thank you. We're about to do it. We're about to go over 2,400 subscribers. The goal, once we started getting all these subscribers, was to get to 2,500 by kickoff by the end of August. We're going to hit 2,500 subscribers, hopefully by the end of July. Amazing. Thank you so much. And we're going to have a record month of downloads. Amazing. Really do appreciate all the support. Don't forget to subscribe. Apple Podcast, Spotify. It is a really big help. And we're going to hear from all these players and coaches over the next 2 weeks. So don't make fun of me having the same shirt on for the next 14 episodes. All right. Again, please subscribe YouTube as well. It is always appreciated. Thank you so much. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. Let's wrap up the conversation with the guys from the Southern Miss Golden Eagles. He is quarterback Braylon Braxton, preseason Sunbelt Player of the Year, Offensive Player of the Year, and Southern Miss's Chris Jones, linebacker.
Charles Huff, head coach at Southern Miss, and you're watching Locked On Sunbelt with Dave Schultz.
Dave Schultz back with the guys from Southern Miss. We got Braylon Braxton. We got Chris Jones. Locked on Sunbelt Live-ish from Sunbelt Media Days. Let's talk to Braylon first. All right, let's talk about that Georgia Southern game because it kind of was bad and then it went good. How did you pick yourself up after, what was really a really tough loss against the Georgia Southern Eagles?
Yeah, I mean, I really just give it to my teammates. Honestly, they kept me in a good headspace. My coaches, everybody kept believing in me. But most importantly, I was believing in myself. I knew that game was on me for sure. I take the blame now looking back at it. That game was definitely on me 100%. But I knew what I could do. I knew my abilities as a player and as a just as a human.
So and it's human nature, and as somebody who has covered players for a long, long time, you guys remember every play. I'm gonna find you in 20 years. You're still gonna be pissed off about those fumbles. All right. Not to mention you remember every touchdown and every interception. Yeah. All right. So how long did it take you to get past it? Was it like Wednesday? You're probably still not really past it. But when did you put it behind you so you could move on to the next game? Was it the next week?
Honestly, it was Monday. I kind of addressed the team on Monday. I basically took the blame for the whole game.
All right.
Told them, guys, that was on me. If I don't let those 2 balls go, we're number 1 in the conference right now. So, I guess it just started with owning it. And once I owned it, I kind of put it behind me. And, I kind of told myself like that won't happen again. So
right. And then take us through the rest of the season because still had some ups and downs. And I mean, you guys still had to come from behind you guys were way behind against JMU and still won in double overtime just to get to where you guys were getting.
Yeah. Like I said, we're a team that we play for our coaching staff and we play for each other. More importantly, last year, I feel like we probably had the closest team in the entire country, as far as relationships goes, as far as people liking each other, like just genuinely having love for each other as teammates. So, that's what really got us through that season, what got us over that hump, and what allowed us to go on that win streak.
All right, so let's talk about being a close team because I didn't understand why Charles Huff was going to leave Marshall to go to Southern Miss. That didn't make any point to me. Didn't make any sense to me until I found out, well, he doesn't have a contract.
Yeah.
So now playing footsie made sense. All right, if you don't have a contract, that makes sense. How did the team handle that? Because, you guys are on social media. You're hearing it, all right? Yeah. You guys understand what's going on. How did you guys handle it?
Yeah, it's a funny story. During the week of the championship, we started getting the little, the Twitter headlines. Right. We're seeing it. We're like, Southern head coach Southern. We like, no way. So, right, we're getting ready for practice. We're practicing. Coach Huff comes up on a Tuesday. He's like, hey, go. We're like, what? He's like, don't make a scene. But, it was that. But, once we all made the decision, once Huff told us he was going, we had a conversation amongst the players like, so are we doing this or not? And it was about a group of 25 guys. You're like, we're doing it. So, it was
doing what? Playing or winning?
We're going with Huff.
We're going with him. Okay.
Now, I don't know what we're doing yet, but I know we was going with Huff. Okay. We still got to go out there and play the game.
Okay. All right. And so talk about the game. I'm not sure it made a difference, but obviously made it much easier once you're going against a third-string quarterback.
Louisiana.
Yeah.
It's so crazy.
I'm not sure it made a difference, but it certainly made a difference.
Yeah, obviously coming into that game, they were already down 1 quarterback. And we unfortunately their guy went out again, and they were down to their 3rd-string quarterback. But it's a next man up mentality in college football. Everybody's always 1 play away, so you never know when your chances, going to be presented. But you just got to be ready. But we can't really,
sure
worry about what happens to the other team. We just got to play our game.
And let me ask you what I asked Coach about you. How do you see how you can improve on what you did last year?
What I would say I can improve on from what I did last year is just maybe not being so fast to leave a clean pocket, letting a play develop and definitely finding my running backs more often, and taking some hits off of myself and getting it to a playmaker in space rather than pulling it down for a 4-yard run, check it down to the back and see what he could do. I would say that's where my game could take the next step.
So when he said it went from air raid to air run, was that just because you took off too soon? Was that design, or was that because you were like, I looked at the first guy, he's covered, I'm running?
No, it was just really what we had to do to win last year, man. Like a lot of guys, we had a big time receiver, Christian Fitzpatrick, who's at Oklahoma State now. We had in my opinion, one of the best running backs in the country last year, AJ Turner. So guys did a lot of things to try to take those guys away, and it just opened things up for me in the run game. So
all right, let's talk to Chris Jones. Why did you stay at Southern Miss when you had opportunities to leave?
Simple. Coach Huff. Coach Huff. Coach Charles Huff was the reason I stayed. He brought in a good staff, a great DC, just a great staff in general. Just build our team from the ground up. We were 1-11. We own that. I mean, there's nothing we can run from. It's just that Coach Huff came in and he's ready to change.
And what did Braylon and those guys tell you about Coach Huff?
They really didn't have to tell me anything. I just seen what type of guy he was. Coach Huff is a straightforward, honest guy, and he told us what he was going to do, and that's what he's going to do.
How healthy are you?
I'm healthy. I'm back. I missed those last 3 games with a leg injury, but, they've done a great job of just rebuilding me back up, getting my body right, gaining, some muscle, 10 pounds of muscle. So really excited.
10 pounds of muscle.
10 pounds of muscle.
Can you believe that? Look how
What are we lifting? How much are we lifting?
I don't want to put it at.
Yes, you do.
Hey,
yes, you do.
What you want to know?
What are we benching?
435.
435.
435.
Deadlift?
We ain't did deadlift.
No deadlift?
Squat 600.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Unit.
Yeah. All right. All right. Let's talk Mississippi State. I mean, I love that game. I mean, I think you guys are going to win it. I ain't shy about saying it. Yes, it has to do with this is not the 1-11 team coming back. It has to do with him bringing the guys from Marshall. I'm sure a lot of people know about it. Not most people. I'm not sure as many people know about it as I do. I don't think that Mississippi State is all that good, although the quarterback actually played better than the team did. I think you guys are going to win that football game, and maybe apparently you guys are 2 touchdown underdogs, but they're going to shock the team. I think that's more about the SEC, the Sun Belt. But I think you guys are going to beat Mississippi State flat out. Give me the 12.5, but I think you guys are going to win.
Yeah.
I appreciate that a lot. We go into every game saying we're going to win, but at the end of the day, we got to go out and execute. No one's going to give us anything because, we brought in a new coach and we brought in 80 new players and we got the Sun Belt newcomer of the year, but no one really cares about any of that stuff. Like Coach Huff always tells us, at the end of the day, it's all about execution. You can watch as much film as you want to. You can work out as hard as you want to in the summer. If you don't show up on Saturdays and execute, it was all for what?
Well, then how cool is it that Mississippi State is actually coming to Hattiesburg? Because it would be different if you guys were going to Starkville. Then it would just be the Sun Belt going to play the SEC. But the SEC is coming to Hattiesburg. To me, that makes a huge difference.
For me, honestly, personally, it's really like a game you dream of as a kid, especially as a Mississippi kid. I grew up in Jackson. I seen both sides of the ball. I mean, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, Jackson State, Southern. So it's really just a big game for me personally. For the team, though, we got guys from everywhere. They might not know how big this game is, but for a Mississippi game, it's just always big. A down south game is always big, especially when it's 2 in-state rivalry games like that. Yeah.
He's Braylon Braxton. He's Chris Jones. They are Locked On Sun Belt. Your teams every day. Best of luck, guys. Thanks for hopping on.
To the top.
Appreciate you. To the top.
Appreciate you.